Welcome! This video guide is going to show you how to use the studio for recording your audio inside Alitu. You can use the studio to record solo or with multiple guests remotely. When entering the studio for the first time, you may need to allow Alitu browser permissions to your microphone and camera. Click the Allow Permissions pop-up. You may need to refresh the browser for these permissions to take effect. Once permissions have been granted, you will be able to select the correct microphone. This is the audio input that Alitu will record. You can also select the appropriate camera so that when you're in the studio, your guests will be able to see you. You can also select which headphones you want to hear the audio through. You can do this in the Show More settings. To allow guests and co-hosts to record with you inside the studio, you need to send them your unique studio link. To obtain your unique studio link, select the Invite Others button, copy the link, and then send on in advance to your guests and co-hosts. Your unique studio link never changes. When your microphone, camera, and headphones are all correctly selected, you can then enter the recording studio. When you enter the studio, Alitu will only record your audio when you press the Start Recording button in the top right-hand corner. This gives your guests and co-hosts some time to arrive before you start recording your podcast. When you're inside the studio, you still have the option to enable or disable your camera. So long as you granted permissions when you first entered, you can enable and disable throughout the recording. Remember, the video is not being recorded, it is just the audio. You also have the option to mute yourself when inside the studio. You still have easy access to the settings of your microphone, camera, and headphones when inside the studio. You will also still have access to your unique studio link. When your recording session has come to an end, whether that be solo or with multiple other guests, simply press the Stop Recording button in the top right. When you press the Stop Recording button, all recordings are then processed and they will appear in your library. Processing times may vary depending on the length of your audio. When the recording has finished processing, it will be available for you to use in your next podcast episode. Now let's take a look at what being in the recording studio looks like for your guests or co-hosts. When it is time to record, your guests can enter the recording studio either by clicking on the studio link that you sent them in advance, or by copy and pasting the link that you sent into the URL of a browser. For the best experience in Alitu, we always recommend that hosts and guests use Google Chrome when recording in Alitu. If a guest enters the recording studio before the host, then they will be presented with this screen. We would recommend in this instant that the guest just refresh the browser. Eventually, when you, the host, enter the recording studio, the guest will then be presented with this next screen, and they can then enter the studio. In much the same way as you, the host, had to allow Alitu browser permissions to your microphone and camera, so too does the guest. Your guest will need to allow these permissions in order to continue on into the recording studio. Your guest may need to refresh the browser for their permissions to take effect. When the permissions have been allowed, they will then be able to choose the exact microphone that they are using on their end, the camera that they are using, and also the headphones that they wish to listen via, and then they can enter the recording studio. When the guest enters the studio, you will notice that it looks exactly the same as it does for the host. When you, the host, want to start recording, a recording icon will show for the guest. The guest still has access to options such as enabling and disabling the camera, the mute button, and also the settings if they need to adjust their microphone, camera, or headphones. You and your guests can also use the chat function to send messages to each other inside the recording studio. The guest can leave the studio by pressing the button in the top right at any point. Leaving the studio does not stop the recording. Only the host can stop the recording on their end. When a guest leaves the studio, they will be presented with this screen. If the recording has finished and you, the host, have stopped the recording will then appear in your library as shown earlier in this video. Happy recording, and thanks for watching this video on how to use the Alitu Recording Studio.